Welcome to the Metal Maven Podcast, where we explore and discover the process and passions of artists in the metal music and art community. The fourth episode of Metal Maven Podcast features rock photographer Jeremy Saffer. His work has donned the covers of Metal Hammer, Outburn, Revolver, Kerrang, and many more. Jeremy, welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's start from the beginning. You were originally a musician before becoming a rock photographer. Can you talk about that transformation and how you changed your professional path?
Yeah, without getting too deep into it, basically I started as a musician who took photos of other musicians that I was playing with. My band opened up for a lot of bigger bands, and I would take the photos to sort of show, hey, this is who we played with. And then the promoter who booked our shows, booked the bigger shows, saw me shooting and had me shoot all his local shows, which are, metal and hardcore shows. And he worked for a bigger company called Mass Concerts, which ran, the Palladium, the Webster, all these bigger venues, much more, not global, but all of New England. And so I started shooting for them as well, shooting concerts. But it was very much, a fan thing where, I shot concerts to get into the concert for free so I could see the bands I wanted to see. But, they used the photos and we all got something out of it. At the time, I was still a musician. Going to Berklee School of Music was like the dream, and I got there. And as I was going to Berklee, I started hating playing music, and I would skip homework to shoot shows. I was finding much more in photography than music at the time. And after a few semesters, I went to this person, Scott Lee, and asked him, hey, I'm dropping out of Berklee. I hate this. I don't want to play music. The thing with music is I could play metal and love it. If you ask me to play jazz, I'll hate it. You ask me to play blues, I hate it. If it's not metal, I'll probably hate it. With photography, I could shoot anything and love it. So anyway, I went up to him and, I was like, I'm done with Berklee. I don't know what to do with my life. And he asked me, what do you want to do? What do you like doing? What do you have fun doing? And I said, shooting shows, taking pictures. And he looked at me like I was the last person to get it. He was like, do that. Because I didn't think of it as, okay, someone can make a living at it. I always looked at it as like, oh, I'm a fan who takes pictures of bands that I like. I never looked at it as I can make a living or even a dime doing this, because I always did it for fun. And so I basically put down the guitar to pick up a camera and just kept going and, started touring, went to a photo school for a little bit. It was a 10-month intensive program kind of thing at Hallmark Institute of Photography. So I did that, and I basically jumped off tour to go there, went there, jumped right back on tour. And over the next 2 years is when everything from those 10 months really soaked in, and I kind of understood what I had just gone through, and all those lessons, all the things I've learned, they become your foundation basically, but it takes a while for those things to soak in as you actually do them on the field. It's one thing to be in this controlled teaching environment, being told, okay, this is how you light this is how you shoot this. And then it's another when you have a band in front of you and you have 5 minutes to shoot them because they're about to go on stage and you have to nail it and get it right. And then you figure out, oh, this is what they said would happen, time-wise, if you shoot this way, if you light this way, how to light it correctly, and all that fun stuff. And yeah, that's basically how I kind of hit that fork in the road and went into photography.
That's awesome. But it's like, you love metal music, you're playing that as a musician, but now it was kind of like an easy transition into being a photographer, because it's like the enjoyment was there and it was still like in the arena that you wanted to be in. Like you're still in the audience, like taking photos, you're still backstage, you're still kind of like, I don't know, in your zone, in your location that you're supposed to be in and thrive in.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm definitely neck deep in the music world. I'm not very good at being like the quote unquote artist, like the photographer, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm much more like, you asked me who a gallery owner is, I couldn't tell you one. You asked me who these well-known, super famous, amazing photographers are. I know very few. You ask me who a tour manager is for any given band, I'll give you their name and what band they're out with right now, and who the guitar tech is, and who the touring drummer is. And my world is very much music more so than art. And so I'm kind of, the way Scott put it, he's kind of my mentor. He's like, okay, so you're like, you didn't become a rock star by playing music. You became a rock star by being a photographer. And I don't think I'm a rock star or anything like that. I'm not that type of person or that egomaniac or anything like that. But I get what he meant. It's more like I'm in the music world. I'm not in the art world. It's just my instrument's a camera.
I think that lack of ego is to your advantage. Like you are an amazing photographer, and you should know that and be like, I am great at this because you are, Jeremy.
I have my
I mean,
moments every now
you
and
you
again.
have a lot of good moments, I'll say that. I mean, I've met you backstage and you're super professional. You have everything like set up, ready to go, and it just seems like you do it flawlessly. I was just like, just to watch you like transition from backstage to in the pit, and then then you like are off like, oh, I'm taking photos like in the alley afterwards of for like personal things that you may sell at your store. So it's like he's got it down.
Oh, you'd have to after this many years. Thank you very much.
You're
It was a
welcome.
lot of trial and error for sure, for sure.
Oh yeah. So all of these people you know and have met, and now that we have your backstory, when an artist or a band or the band manager contacts you, what is your creative process start to finish? Because there's definitely more to it than point and click.
Well, every shoot's kind of its own thing. Everything's very different. There's no one path. It's kind of a choose your own adventure, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes a magazine will assign me a photo shoot with a band and they'll have a very specific concept. Sometimes they'll be like, go do your thing. And that's all
Mm-hmm.
they'll say. Sometimes a band will hit me up and hire me directly and say, we have this really intricate idea. We need a makeup artist. We need this. We need an FX artist, we need extras, and then sometimes bands are like, I don't know, we just need a photo on a background. And, it's more up to me. Sometimes it's usually when there's an idea, it's very collaborative where they'll come to me with a concept and ask me how to make it happen, and I'll come up with some ideas and we'll, tinker with it until we make it happen or change the idea a little bit. So it's always different for sure.
Mm.
Most times I would say 8 out of 10 times there's no concept. It's just we're doing a photo shoot, and it's up to the lighting, the background, and the band to kind of make that a unique photo shoot so it doesn't look like every other photo shoot and there's no concept. And concepts can get real cheesy or they can get real awesome. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And the problem with conceptual shoots is when you're doing a regular shoot without a concept, you have okay, I have these 3 spots, I can shoot it with these 4 different types of lighting, we get like 9, 10 different sets. Okay, we have a concept to shoot, we're shooting that concept, and if that doesn't work, we are effed, you know
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much more that goes into concept with like building stuff, but sometimes it's so much more fun than just a normal photo shoot. So it varies, it ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Has there ever been a shoot where like you thought like, oh my God, this may not work, but then it ended up being amazing in the end?
I'm sure there are. I have the memory of Dory at best, so I'm
No
trying to
worries.
think of it. I know there's so many shoots where I get stressed sometimes in the moment where I'm like before the shoot I'm like messing with lighting. I'm like, oh, this isn't gonna work, and then I'll move something. I'm like, ah, this doesn't work, and then I'll move something. I'm like, ah, hell yeah, we got it. This is it. Awesome.
So just a little
So
micro adjustment, and you're like, okay, now I see what we need to do.
yeah, most times conceptual things are usually locked in pretty well. I don't think there's any. There was a concept I shot that didn't work. It was a very well-known metalcore band, and we wanted to do something with them. And this was early 2000s.
Hmm.
We wanted to do something with them, kind of tied up with shirts around their head and blood on the shirts, kind of like a horror-inspired captive thing. And it ended up looking like there was a beheading video that came out maybe the same week of that photo shoot, And we looked at the photos and we're like, oh, yeah, no, we can't use this. Nope.
It was just like too
It
similar.
oh, it looked like a straight up like terrorist kind of thing.
Oh
So
God.
we were just like, okay, this doesn't come off as horror. It comes off as, you know, 9/11 kind of stuff, and it's not good. That was one situation where it didn't work, but I want to say that's within the first year of me doing photo shoots where I was just not thinking about, oh, okay, what, I'm just doing this for fun. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing. What can this image, mean to certain people negatively?
Mm.
And usually I don't care. I like pushing the envelope. That one was just a whole, like, that was a big nope.
Yeah. I mean, you learn from those things though, and then like that stuff like never leaves your mind as you move on to other projects, you know? You just move on and like you get better as you go. So, over the years, how would you say your photography has evolved? What is your signature style that makes you stand out and have your work featured on magazine covers?
Well, I don't know that I have a signature style. I know a lot of people say I do, but I'm not good at pinpointing it. Other people are. I think if you do something enough, and no matter how different it is, it all gets put into the same kind of Venn diagram, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Like you do different things, but they all have your little, twist on it, but you don't see it because you look at it as I'm doing different things.
Hmm.
So I don't really know what my signature style would be. But I mean, that's the whole thing about like having a signature look is a lot of photographers don't know that they do, and it's up to kind of the same thing with art where it's up to the viewer to sort of say, okay, this is art and this is not art, or this is a signature look and this is not.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing about art because it's not always the artists. I think artists calling themselves artists is such bullshit sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's just like an ego stroke. It's like, okay, you're a painter, sure. You're a photographer, sure. An artist, that's up to them. That's up to the critics. That's not up to you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess if you make a living off it, you are what you are. I don't see myself that way. I guess I look at myself differently. But in terms of how my photography has evolved, it's a lot of trial and error. A lot of, changing different types of lighting, trying different types of lighting, getting new gear that kind of changes the way you shoot certain things, looking at what doesn't work in certain shoots. When you have that shoot where you're like, oh, if I just did this differently, this would look so much more awesome. And then you do that differently in the next shoot and make it better. It's always about trying to improve and
Hmm.
learn more equipment, learn new things, learn new techniques, learn new lighting, learn newer stuff. As with anything, technology is constantly evolving, so everything you do now is going to be obsolete soon. So you got to keep on learning and keep on figuring out ways to better yourself.
Exactly. So currently, what is your weapon of choice in regards to equipment and technique?
Equipment's all over the place. My cameras are all Canon. 1DX is my main with a bunch of different lenses. My 24 to 70 is probably my main studio. The 85 1.2 is probably my main natural light and outdoors, and I use that live as well. My main live is likely my 16 to 35, along with the 85 1.2, and then I also break out the 15 millimeter fisheye for live because it's such an underused live lens. Well, Canon discontinued it, which didn't help, but and then the 70 to 200 I break out every now and again in studio, very rarely live, and I have a 2x extender I use if ever there's a soundboard shoot, which aren't many because I'm mostly not shooting, Beyonce and Lady Gaga anymore. I'm mostly doing metal, so
Yeah. Because I've seen you have this like this rig, this like it's like a utility belt almost where you can just put the camera down and quickly change your lens. I've seen you in the pit when you're photographing live music. So I was just wondering like how many lenses do you keep on you when you're in that kind of situation? I know it varies from being backstage at your home studio or something that's like isolated and not in that live setting. I was just wondering what you hold on you when you're doing that.
Well, say for one lens, I usually have the same lenses with me. The 70 to 200 is the only one I would ever leave at home and not bring with me to a show or a shoot, but usually I have it with me. And it always depends on the venue. I'll know what venue I'm going into and what the shooting conditions are, so I'll know if the stage is too high or not wide enough. I won't bring my fisheye because, well, I'll bring it, I just won't really use it. Um, I always have the 1635 and the 85 1.2 on me at all times for live. For shooting in studio, I always have the 24 to 70 and 1635 at all times. Yeah, so those are pretty much the lenses I'll always have with me. 85 1.2, 24 to 70 2.8, and the fisheye.
Do you research what the band's performance is before you go into it? Because I know they have like different lighting and like when certain things change, like do you research what the lighting would be on stage for the bands that you're shooting for, or do you just go off of what the venue offers? I mean, or just what the venue has initially?
Well, most bands I shoot actually have their own lighting and their own LD. Like, they'll have their own lighting director with them who will do the lighting for the show, but there's no way to really research that unless you watch all the live clips from that tour. And even then, if they're not bringing their own lighting with them, which, some bands have their own lighting director but not their own lighting with them, it's going to change every single night. It's not going to be consistent. So unless you're on the tour shooting multiple dates of the tour, you don't really know what you're going into. And, shooting multiple dates of the tour, if you're shooting more than the first 3 songs, is a great way to get an idea of where to get the best shots the second night, or the third night. The first night, you're kind of seeing it. And when you're on a full tour, it's super easy to get all the key shots because, you're seeing it 30 days in a row.
Yeah, you know the pattern,
Exactly.
everything.
And it's a lot of counting, and that's something I teach. You'll watch the lighting, and you'll see it'll go, say red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow, red, green, yellow with the music. And if you count and get ready and you want to hit that yellow because you don't want that red, you just wait for that green, get ready to shoot, take the picture when it hits yellow. But the trick is you got to make sure the yellow lines up with whatever the artist is doing in front of you, and that looks cool. Because if they're doing something cool when it's green and then something in between or dumb when it's yellow, you kind of got to roll with the punches and get the next shot.
So you have to be super aware and adaptable when you're photographing live performances, it seems like.
Absolutely, because you're not really in control of the ambient lighting. If you shoot with a flash, which a lot of people are very against, a lot of bands say no flash, a lot of venues say no flash, I often use it. When I'm allowed to, I often ask a band who says no flash to allow me to use it, because I don't use 100%. I use like 20% as fill. And what that does is it locks in the artist, and then I bleed in the ambient lighting. So if there's red lighting and I have this red Hulk looking Hellboy creature in front of me, or this blue Smurf or green Hulk kind of, what are you going to do with a photo of that? Turn it to black and white. That's the only thing you can do. But you add fill flash and they get a natural skin tone, the white fill. And then you have all that red and purple and green and whatever lighting behind them in the photo. So that's what I try to do when I'm allowed to. But sometimes the lighting's just so dark that there's nothing you can do other than, you have to use flash. And then other times the lighting's much more adequate, especially if you're shooting in, say, an arena. So shooting something like, say, Alice Cooper. His lighting's incredible. And, I think they have spotlights. I'm not sure, but either way, you don't need a flash with Alice Cooper because there's so much lighting. He's playing big, big, big venues. Whereas metal bands, they keep it dark, they keep it creepy, they use lots of reds, and it's not as easy.
When you're in the pit, I mean, I feel like most other photographers that are in there with you are, everyone keeps it professional, but does it ever get competitive down there? So you get like somebody wants to like really get the right shot, or is it pretty amicable?
It depends on the situation. There's certainly been situations where people have thrown elbows and gotten kicked out of photo pits, and people jumping in the way of other people and people getting aggro. I'd say there's more competition on Facebook threads and more negativity on Facebook threads than there is in a photo pit. Um, it happens, it is what it is, but everyone's there for different reasons. I don't look at it as competition. It's like, I'm shooting for this reason. This photographer's not shooting for the same reason I'm shooting. We're not in competition with each other. Yeah, we
Hmm.
probably want similar shots, but, you know, I'm not going to steal his job. He's not going to steal mine. It's all good.
All right, sweet. Well, in regards to professionalism, there's also more to being in a creative business than just the actual work. There's all the behind the scenes, and you have to maintain high reputation and integrity. And I was wondering, what are your standards and expectations of yourself that got you to this point in your career?
I'm not sure how to answer that properly, but I would say, in terms of my standards and my reputation, it's just being professional at all times, being kind, being fair, I don't know, and not being shitty, I guess.
That always works. That always
Yeah.
helps. And always delivering amazing work. How much do you go over your photography and like give it a critical eye before you hand it over? Like, what is that behind the scenes for you when you're basically judging your own work and making sure it's good enough to give to your client?
Oh, everyone's kind of their harshest critic. And a lot of times I'll hand something in and then I'll be told, hey, can you fix this, this, and this? And it's no problem. But I look at everything as print. I don't look at it as it's just another image. I want to say, like, okay, I want to make this photo strong enough where it could be used for a poster, used for a cover, used for a photo print. I think of things in physical form. I'm not thinking of, okay, this is going on Instagram. And I want everything to have that sort of quality where it's worth having on your wall. It's worth having in a magazine. Because if it's not, what's the point in taking it?
Like, if it just has one use, then what's the point? You should have multiple, like trying to get the most out of every photo that you take.
Oh, absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I know you also do other photography besides rock photography. And I just want to talk about your passion work. I know you just recently announced your Daughters of Darkness project that you've been working on for almost a decade.
Sure, yeah. Daughters of Darkness actually is the Corpse Paint project. It's
Oh,
the,
all
it's the
right.
title for it.
Okay.
The way it came about is, years and years and years ago, my friend Kareem, who was at the time a tour manager for like Napalm Death and Black Dahlia, and he works for Indie Merch. He's the best dude. He wanted to start a clothing line called NLSL Clothing, and there's a famous album cover of a band called Pulp, and the name of the album is This Is Hardcore, and it's a girl face down with a red kind of pillow or background, and she's just looking down. And his concept was to shoot this with a model in corpse paint and say, NLSL Clothing, this is black metal. And I shot plenty of black metal bands, black metal being my favorite genre. Mortal's my favorite band, so it made sense. And Kareem and I had known each other years, and so he was like, yeah, do this shoot, and I got a model in, and we did the mock cover shoot, which ended up being on a shirt. And the funniest thing, it was offset printing, so it wasn't dead center. And if you look up the shirt, you might be able to find it. If you look up the Pulp This Is Hardcore shirt album cover, you may find it. It was basically printed on the belly. So when you put on the shirt, the corpse painted woman's face is down, dead center on your lower abdomen with a mouth open.
Oh,
So it became the black metal blowjob shirt.
oh, unintentional.
Extremely unintentional, but super funny.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so when we did that shoot, I had worked with that model a few times, and it was a nude shoot because the woman is nude in the cover, and I've shot nude with this. Well, I've shot this model nude multiple times, with fine art stuff. We decided to kind of shoot more than the gig, We wanted to shoot, on a background in the basement of the studio, all around, do a bunch of stuff in corpse paint. And, I immediately was like, oh, this is awesome. This is everything that I grew up on. So after doing that first shoot, editing those photos, I immediately wanted to do a project with it. And I think within days, I lined up like 20 shoots for it. And I wasn't sure what the end result was going to be. I wanted to do at first, a series and then a calendar, which I did put out 2 calendars years and years and years ago, but that's a long time ago. And then I've been wanting to put out a book for years and years, but it just kind of like, I just kept on shooting. I'm not good at stopping. I'm not good at like letting go of things. So I was just like, oh, all right, well, there's these 5 models I haven't shot yet, so I'll shoot them too. So then it turned out to be, 400 models I've shot for this. And the whole concept behind it is, I don't know if you ever did this when you were younger. You would go into a music store, go to the metal section, and start scanning through CDs or records, and not knowing who the band is, you saw a cool cover or a cool logo, and you're like, I'm going to buy this because it's probably going to be good. And then for me, it was anytime I saw a band with corpse paint on, or, all those classic Napalm and I'm forgetting the other label, and even the old Cradle of Filth stuff, you see this, nude model in this beautiful landscape, and there's a black metal logo over it, and you're like, oh my god, this is going to be the most epic album ever. And you either get this amazing black metal or doom record, and you had no idea, but the cover is what sold you. It was the imagery that sold you. And that was really my passion behind this project, because it's like, oh, okay, this is what inspired all the music I grew up on. Oh, well, for me to grow up on it. And it's kind of has that duality. It really has that Beauty and the Beast kind of thing, which is, I always think is a cool thing. Like Legend's one of my favorite movies ever. I love the whole duality of that. So you have this, yeah, oh yeah, such a good movie. So you have this beautiful figure and this evil, jarring, corpse paint face doing black metal poses, or we mix it up. There's some where they're doing like straight up black metal poses, some where they're doing more elegant, calmer poses. But all those photos have that sort of duality to it, where it's like evil, it's beautiful, it's dark, it's sometimes creepy, it's it's a whole lot of all of that, which is what I was going for. And now we're finally, I have new management now, and they're kind of setting up the gallery thing, looking for a publisher, trying to get that to happen.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and today I posted about it, which is probably what you saw.
Yeah.
And then the cool thing was, from that post, a lot came out of it. A lot of galleries hit me up and said they're interested. A couple like two dream venues hit me up and said, hey, let's do this. Let's make it happen. So I figure the gallery shows will happen, and then from there the book will happen, and it'll be awesome.
If it's featured at the Satanic Temple of Salem, I have to go.
My fingers are crossed, but
dude, so amazing if that happens.
Yes,
I feel I'm sending out the good vibes for that.
Or the evil vibes.
The good evil vibes.
It's just such a perfect pairing if it happens. So my fingers are crossed. Right. Invertedly, of course.
Of course. So to conclude, I'd love to discuss your music photography seminar and workshop on May 25th and 26th in Chicopee, Massachusetts. You're passing on the knowledge to help fledgling artists get their foot in the door and level up their skills. What's the goal or fulfillment from teaching others? And of course, obviously, let's discuss what you'll be doing in this seminar and workshop.
For sure. I've been doing workshops for the better part of a decade. And my whole thing was, when I was starting, I reached out to a lot of photographers who weren't helpful. They were very secretive. They didn't want to give you their secrets, tell you how to accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, because they looked at you as competition. And I think that's not the right way to do it. I think that's a very bad way to be. You want to help each other out. You want to be a community. You want to, teach people, so they don't have to go through the hardships you do. I mean, there's a lot about paying your dues, and I understand that. Yes, you have to pay your dues. You don't get a free pass, but sharing your knowledge is not a free pass. That's, okay, this is what I did to get there. This is what you can do. It might not work for you, but it's how I did it. And I don't mind sharing this stuff. I'm not a secretive person. I'm not holding on to that and keeping it from people, because I just think that's not the way to be. So in the seminar, this one's called Capturing Music. Or actually, no, I finished that one. This one's just it's just titled the Music Photography Seminar and Workshop. It's what I used to do. I used to do one called Capturing Music, but this one's been extended. It's basically 2 8 to 10 hour days, which they're long days. And the first day is the seminar, where it's basically a PowerPoint for the first majority of the day, and I go over everything from, getting published, getting paid, what to charge, how to rate your stuff, how to sell your stuff, how to send invoices, how to negotiate contracts, lighting, using different types of lighting, different lighting techniques, full lighting tutorial, photo breakdowns where I'll have a photo up there, talk about the lighting, and then have a next photo and have them try to figure out the lighting, and then I tell them what it is, that kind of stuff. Talking about concert photography, so much more. It's a very, very long but very informative and very thorough slideshow. And then after the slideshow, we do a lighting tutorial where I'll set up a full studio set, go over my equipment, show them how it works and what I do with it and the different types of lighting I use, and then they get to try it out. The next day, I have guest bands come in, and then we do a Q&A, and they get to ask the bands, stuff like, what do you look for when you hire a photographer? What type of photographer would you take on tour with you? And everything in between, things that they normally don't get to ask bands. And then I do a live photo shoot with a band, and I have a really, really cool one for this upcoming one in Massachusetts. So I'll do a photo shoot with a band, and it's not a mock photo shoot. It's a legit photo shoot, and it's being used. And then after that photo shoot, the students take everything they learned from the seminar, take everything they learned from the lighting, and then they use my lighting to do different photo shoots with the band, but I make it real life. I become the tour manager, and I say, okay, you have like 3 minutes to get this shot before they have their meet and greet, go. Because that's a real life situation I've dealt with, and I feel like throwing them in there where they get more than one chance. It's not like they have one set. They have probably 5 to 10 sets of shoots with the guest bands and guest artists. So they get the hang of it, which is pretty cool. You can see people are kind of nervous at first, and then by the second or third round, they're getting into it. They're giving direction. They're telling them how to pose. They know the names. They know the lighting they want. They know exactly what they're trying to get, and it's awesome. And then we wrap up, and I actually live edit a photo from the photo shoot I just did. And I do a group shot, a solo shot, a close-up, one further away, so they could see every different way I edit, because I edit those very differently. And yeah, I've been doing it for a while, and this is going to be the last one I do on the East Coast. I'm going to be announcing a final West Coast date for this seminar sometime, summer or fall. And then the idea is like, this takes so much out of me doing 2 8-hour days in a row, plus talking in between and talking after and all that I end up with a sore throat for like a week and a half. So I just need to not do that anymore. I need to kind of, rather than having 75 subjects I touch on, kind of separate it out so I can do more, not smaller seminars per se, but basically focus on one thing, and maybe take something like a lighting tutorial that's 2 hours long and make it a 5-hour lighting tutorial. Or take something like the business of music photography, where we talk about, pricing, pricing, invoicing, contracts, negotiating, endorsement and all that kind of stuff, and turn it from like a little half-hour segment into like maybe a 2-hour kind of seminar. And I can really go in and, well, this seminar is for everybody, pros, amateurs. It's a little bit for everybody. Maybe I can do some seminars in the future that aren't, some that are for established photographers who need to know this, and then some that are specifically for beginning photographers who need to learn lighting. So I'm definitely going to change it up in the future. These are going to be my last two for a while, for sure. And these are definitely my final two all-inclusive 2-day super long seminars.
That is amazing. I mean, it's not just accessible, but like fully loaded. I mean, I know if I was a beginner photographer, I'd be like, thank you for this. Because sometimes people, they just think about the work. They think about the act of just taking photography or doing what needs to be done creatively. And they're not thinking about invoicing and the business. And then actually being there is different than thinking about going to do it. Like, and then you're giving them the chance to mess up, but not officially. Like perhaps you're like when you first started, you didn't have that choice. You were like, I might make a mistake today. That's on me. And you can kind of teach them like, this is how that feeling of getting thrown in at first, you know?
Absolutely. When I started, music photography seminars didn't exist. When I started doing them, they didn't exist. Not to my knowledge, anyway. And now there's a few photographers out there that do them, which is great because, it gives you that little cushion. It gives you that safety net of being able to try it when it doesn't count, when it's not going to go against, your professionalism, and you're not going to ruin, an assignment or ruin a shoot for a band or ruin a shoot for a record label and lose pay over it. You have the chance to just do it, which is awesome.
And it's also a level of like building up a level of confidence. Sometimes you get like super scared before you do something. You're like, you're just kind of like hyping yourself up and you're like, maybe I'm not going to get this done correctly. You have that anxiety. And I think if people take this seminar with you, that they'll feel much more relaxed in that first environment they're in. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, that's absolutely one of the biggest things that students have said having taken it. They didn't have their confidence. They were scared to pose band. A big thing about the seminar is confidence is key, and that's something I bring up again and again. And being able to pose people and direct them. And a lot of feedback I get from bands shooting them is, wow, you actually direct us. No other photographer does. They just tell us to be evil, and what does that even mean? And so I definitely come from the school of you need to direct your shot because you need to control it. And when you see these students starting to shoot and they're just like, hi, they're scared, and then by the third or fourth set they're like, you chin down, you turn in this way, you do that, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And they leave with that confidence and then they apply it. I've had so many students go on to become published photographers, touring photographers, and then other things in the music world. One of my past interns and students was the tour manager for Of Mice and Men. Now he's the tour manager for Diplo. Another one is the photographer and touring merch dude for Silverstein. Another one tours on Warped Tour, or two of them tour on Warped Tour. It's great to see these guys use what they learned and apply it and get to the next level and get, beyond that, way beyond that. They just kept going and going. The only way you can really fail is to give up. If you keep going, you'll get there.
Definitely. That sounds amazing. I mean, it's like confidence, discipline, and control. It's like you kind of need those three things to like make it in this industry. And that's what you're teaching people to kind of find that in themselves. It all starts inside. Yeah, you can work a camera, you can do that, but you have to like carry those traits with you when you're in this business.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, it's pretty vital.
oh my gosh. So I'm super glad that you're teaching people this because I don't know, even in my own work, it's like I've always been trying to figure things out on my own. So it's like when I see other people help others, it just, I don't know, it makes me feel great, especially like in our industry that we work in. It's like if more people can help others and like have them contribute to the music community, that's a great thing.
Absolutely.
So is the East Coast seminar sold out? Because last I checked, you only had 6 tickets left. So I was just wondering.
Nope, there's still 6 tickets left.
Perfect. All right, guys. JeremySaffer.com/seminar. You really should invest in your photographic future with him.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Jeremy, that's all the questions I have for you today. And I really want to thank you for taking time out of your night to chat with me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
To view more of Jeremy's photography, including his latest personal project, Corpse Paint, visit jeremysaffer.com. And if you're interested in learning the ins and outs of music photography, check out Jeremy's hands-on and in-depth seminar happening in Chicopee, Massachusetts on May 25th and 26th. Tickets are limited, so head to jeremysaffer.com/seminar now to secure your spot and level up your skills. Visit metalmavenpodcast.com for links to Jeremy's social profiles, videos, and read the full transcript of this interview. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe to Metal Maven Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Google Play.